like to say good morning, but it's good evening. So I'll start with yourself, Council.
By introducing yourself,
Oh,
please.
first, hi, I'm Brendan from Alberta. I'm Brendan Miller. I'm counsel for Freedom Corp, of which is an organization that represents the protesters as well as the truckers that were in your city in 2022. So, Mr. Fleury, I want to start just asking you a few questions, if you don't mind. Do you remember sending an email on February 4th, 2022 to Kim Ayotte, Steve Kalinakokis, Keith Egile, Serge Arpin, Lucille Coulard, and Liberal Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre, Yazir Naqvi, with a tweet from the former Federal Attorney General, Mr. Alan Rock, that stated the city should obtain an injunction to restrain the truck horns on the basis of nuisance. Do you remember sending that email?
Yes.
All right. And I understand that Mr. Ayotte, General Manager for Emergency and Protective Services for the City of Ottawa, replied to you. Is that right?
I don't believe so. I believe the answer came from Steve K.
From Steve K himself?
I believe.
Okay. And from your recollection, what was that answer?
All options are being looked at.
Okay.
Can the witness see the document? Is there a reason we are not putting it to him?
I was just asking if you remembered, and I'm not permitted to because I didn't seek leave prior. So that's under the rules. So in your evidence, you made use of a term you referred to as microaggression. Is that right?
I believe so. Multiple times.
Okay. Is microaggression, is your understanding of that it means verbal and environmental slights?
Je suis francophone, donc si vous voulez être spécifique sur les mots, il va falloir que vous me...
I'm francophone, so if you want to ask me specific things about words, you're going to have to ask me in French. You're asking me a theory about how to define something. Unfortunately, my knowledge of English terminology is perhaps not sufficiently appropriate, Commissioner.
Je m'appelle Brendan.
My name is Brendan.
I think,
Okay.
it is funny, but it's not. I am doing my very best to answer clear questions in English. You asked me a very specific question on a definition. I'm saying ask me, clarify in French, and I'm glad to specify if it is yes or no. The specificity of the nuance of a word, I'm uncomfortable in responding to your question.
What of the words that I put to you, and there's a few, so means, verbal, and environmental, and slights is confusing? Is there, which one are you confused about?
J'ai expliqué plusieurs fois que
I've already explained.
microagression, je sais pas si c'est la bonne terminologie, mais j'essaie de les exprimer.
Try to express this, and I've explained this to the Commissioner, that to my mind, everything in the periphery of the red zone was what I would describe as being microaggressions. I could describe microaggressions to you. For example, go in front of somebody and pull their mask off. I don't know how we want to describe that as a definition, but that's an example of a microaggression. Walking into a restaurant, being asked to leave, and sitting down without having the right to stay. That's another microaggression. Fighting. Somebody who's homeless. Beating somebody who's homeless. That's another microaggression. Another type of aggression. Making so much noise at such high volumes that you have to close down a daycare. That's another kind of aggression. That's how I've described aggressions, Commissioner. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a background in specifics, but I'm trying to use the terminology that I can to be as specific as possible to describe what I received as information and what I was able to see.
Thank you. Could someone get him a pair of these so he can understand what I am saying in English as well, please?
Oh, that's mean.
Is that possible?
Oh, God, they're so big. Just tell them you don't need it.
Do you need this? Would you like one of these for when I question you in English, because I'm unfortunately incapable of speaking French?
And I will do my very best to answer in English, but it was a very, I don't need it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you had said that beating up a homeless person was an aggression, at least the translation. That's what it was. That's more of an assault. So had you witnessed any homeless people get beaten up by protesters?
No, if you recall my intervention, the Shepherds of Good Hope is located at the corner of King Edward and Murray. There was an incident with a client. The executive director reached out to me to inform me of the incident.
Okay. And were any charges laid?
I have no clue.
Okay. Who was the individual who was beaten? Do you know?
I have no clue.
Okay. Thanks. So it was in February 4, 2022, you get that email. Were you aware that Chief Solly, as well as the OPP, had recommended that the city get an injunction in January 31?
I don't believe I was.
Okay. And both of you, I take it, none of you were on the police commission, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you understand that as general councilors, not on the police commission, are involved with the police. Again, my friend was trying to clarify that with you. The police are independent of the city, and they can't share information that they know or their plans with you. Do you know that?
Absolutely.
Correct.
My interventions relate to information I have from my community and reports that my community residents and businesses did to the Ottawa Police, and making sure that it's getting the attention and awareness from authorities.
Okay. Thank you. So those are some of my questions. The other one I had, what is your relationship with Zexi Lee? How long have you known her?
I've never met Zexi Lee, except for when she was recognized as a community builder at City Hall by City Council.
Okay. And did you ever also assist, and I'll move on to yourself, Councillor, but with the distribution of the release agreements and the request of the protesters and truckers to leave under the asbestos of signing a release from the injunction and claim that was filed by Ms. Lee?
You're asking me?
Yeah, did you?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions for you.
Thank you.
Councillor, so I understand that you do know Ms. Lee, is that right?
Yes, I met Miss Lee about a week after the occupation ended.
Okay, but prior to that, I understand that from some of the information that you were handing out some of those leaflets for them to sign and to leave. If they signed it, they would be released from the class action lawsuit if they left. You were assisting with that.
Yes, that was at the time I had not met Zexi Lee. I had friends who had been working in the community, and I agreed to go out with them to try to encourage some of the people who were parked on Kent Street to move along to avoid being part of that class action.
Okay, thank you. And I think a lot of these have actually, my friend has got through most of them. When did Chief Solly advise you that he needed 1,800 officers? Do you remember when that was?
I can't tell you when it was. I do recall that he said that.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that he asked for that around February 8th, 2022?
It would be fair to say that. I can't say that that's the exact date, yes.
And so just to clarify, so when you made that motion in the special council meeting with respect to having the Ottawa Police Service be taken over by the RCMP, that was on February 7th, 2022. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Right. And why did you choose the RCMP and not the OPP?
At the time, I was desperate to do anything to bring order into the residential areas. I saw the area around Parliament as being the responsibility of the federal government, and that is why I asked for federal assistance, which was the RCMP.
Right. And in some of the records, a colleague of yours, I believe you know him, NDP member, Provincial Parliament, Joel Harden, he was contacting members in the community and members in the council trying to raise money for the claim of Ms. Lee. Do you remember that?
I don't recall that, no.
Okay. And one more question, actually, for you, Mr. Fleury. You had said earlier in your evidence that individuals and persons couldn't live in the space where the protesters had set up. Is that right?
Yes.
So how did the protesters live there?
A big rig, as you know, is quite a significant space. And what we saw was very creative ways to live in those spaces or in the cab or so, yeah, I mean,
So
not sure where you're.
these individuals that are living there in the area, of course, are in their houses and as well as in their apartments, correct?
Who are the individuals in this
You
case?
said it wasn't livable for the residents, correct?
Correct.
Right. But they're living in their houses, and these truckers and protesters are living in their trucks, right?
You're saying that, yeah.
Okay. You would also define the trucks as weapons.
Yes.
Okay. And how were those weapons used to assault anyone or hurt them, other than the horns and the diesel you've already spoken about? Is that it?
The physical nature of the vehicle, which is quite large, and the combination of those are a form of a fortress, a form of a weapon.
Okay, so it's your view that a truck sitting on the side of a road with somebody sleeping inside of it is a weapon?
No.
Okay, so,
Talking about the circumstances that created the occupation and created for businesses to not be able to operate safely, for transit services to be able to serve residents of Ottawa, for residents to be able to live in their own units, in their own properties, and walk safely on the streets of Ottawa.
okay. How many individuals that you know of since the occupation or the protest has ended, did you know during that time that vacated their residences?
I can't speak to that.
Okay. And last question. Ms. McKenney, or Councillor McKenney, you talked about in your evidence in chief about a counter-protest, correct? That you attended?
Yes, at
Right.
Billingsbridge on Riverside, yes.
And I have to put this to you, just, it's about fairness question, because there may be evidence about this later. Did you recall seeing at that protest a sign with one of the counter-protests with a swastika on it that stated, gas the vaccinated, or gas the unvaccinated? Do you remember seeing that there?
I do not recall seeing that.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my only questions.